Hey everybody, welcome to the Intuit Developer Friday Hangout. My name is Jimmy Wong and I'll be hosting today's session. David Leary is on his way to California as we speak, so I'm filling in for him. Why is he coming to California on the plane? Because QuickBooks Connect is happening on November 15th through the 17th. For those of you who have gotten your tickets, you're going to be there. We all look forward to seeing you at the event. If not, you can go to QuickBooksConnect.com and live stream the whole event straight to your computer. Here's our agenda for QuickBooks Connect. From November 11th to the 12th, we're going to have a pre-event hackathon. So for those of you who are going to be at the hackathon, we'll be there as well, so we're looking forward to seeing you guys there. On November 15th, we're going to have our accountant day. The main day will be November 16th, and we're going to have a finale half day on the 17th. So we're having our small business hackathon again on November 11th through the 12th. We are currently at max capacity, but if anybody still wants to sign up for our waiting list, feel free to go to smallbizhack.com. It's your chance to win $5,000 USD. We challenge you to create a solution that saves a small business time or money, and it's going to be in Mountain View at the Intuit headquarters this year. And as usual, for all upcoming events that is happening at Intuit Developer, go to developer.intuit/hub/events, and there's a calendar there with all of our latest events. Okay, and with us today we have Nikita and Tristan from Square. Nikita's from QuickBooks. They're going to both present their APIs, and we're going to first start off with Nikita. So Nikita, go ahead.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yes, so I work with Intuit Developer. I joined a few months ago, and I'm excited to share our APIs and our platform with all. Let me share my screen. Oh, can you not see the slides?
I see your desktop.
Oh.
Wait, it's going back and forth. Now I see your slides.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so today's agenda, I'll just go over a little bit about our API resources, the operations these APIs support, getting started with us real quickly in 3 easy steps, and a few developer tools which are going to be very handy during the hackathon. So our API supports pretty much everything that you see on the UI. I say pretty much everything because we do not have 100% support. And I'll go over that real quickly. So just switching over to our website. If you go to developer.intuit.com, you can go to API reference from API docs and tools, and you should land on this page. We kind of divide our API into 4 main sections. That is transaction resources, which go over bill payment, credit, invoice, kind of the main one, estimate, and so on. And then we have name list resources, customer, item, vendor. I'm just naming out the most common entities used by all our apps, and vendor. And then we have report resources. If you're aware of this feature through our QuickBooks Online account, you can run reports on everything, and this is very helpful for accountants and customers alike. So we do have API support for that right here. And then we have some supporting resources like attachables, batch calls, and having access to the QBO users' preferences. So we do full support. So create, read, update, delete on most of these resources. If you go back to our API reference, for each of the API, you would see right here what operations it supports. So build has create, read, delete, and update, and so on. So for some objects that don't support all these operations, you would see that in the documentation. One of the most important things that you might want to know is if you're doing an update operation, do use sync token field that is returned in the payload. So you have to use the latest sync token and use that in order to successfully update an object. Our query does support filtering, sorting, and pagination. So if you go back to our reference and you see all the fields for example, this bill object, you can see which fields are filterable and sortable right here in our documentation. So that should be very helpful. So getting started. So we have 3 easy steps. Create an Intuit developer account. I already have created an account. I can just show you what my apps look like. So this is how it would look like. You can create new app, select APIs, for example, if you just do accounting. And there you have it. You have created your own app. The most important part is this key section where you get your tokens. This supports OAuth 1, but you would, when you create a new account, you would get OAuth 2 tokens. And so if you want to generate the OAuth tokens, what you would do is go to dashboard and test connect to OAuth. And again, this is OAuth 1, but you would go get an OAuth 2 playground and you would run through it, get an access token, OAuth access token, and then you would use OAuth 2 access tokens to make API calls. So I just went over the developer portal. This is an app, Fundbox. They've documented pretty much everything. And they talk a little bit about how their experience was while they were developing on our platform. I already went over the OAuth playground. So it's a very easy tool to get your OAuth access token and not worry about how it really works. So some of the tools we offer are Sandbox. So we provide a Sandbox account, which mimics an actual QBO Live account. We release all the new features on the Sandbox, so you can test and develop on Sandbox and then quickly go live. I can show you how it looks like. So if you go to your developer account and click on Sandbox from here, you will see the Sandbox I've created for different locales. You can just choose your location from here. If this drop down would just drop. So yeah, it should officially do that, and then you can just add it. I think I'm at max capacity, that's why it's not doing that. So yeah, the maximum you can do is 5 Sandbox accounts, and to show you how it looks like, it just looks like a QBO account. So whatever you do with our API, you can see here what's the result of that. And then our API Explorer. Our API Explorer, you can go from API Docs and Tools to Explorer. We have all our entities here, and you can just, without creating any tokens, you can just come here and see how our API actually works, and each of these operations. So I'll let it load. So this is for create account. If you just get your default body, and I selected my QB account and then try it. I'm getting 400. Okay, I think it's because duplicate name exists. Okay, let me say it's, and then you can see these are the response headers. You can see what the response body looks like, and that's the account object. And you can try that with all the other entities. We do have officially supported SDKs. So again, I would go here, it's easy navigation to SDK. And then we have officially supported .NET, Java, PHP. And then if you want to code in other languages, we do have third-party libraries for Node, Python, Ruby, and other languages. We do have sample apps in various languages. So again, should be here, code samples. And so you can see we have all the .NET, Java, PHP, using our SDK, without our SDKs, and then just vanilla HTTP request API calls in various languages. So that's in sample apps and codes. I did SDK sample code. Postman is very helpful in troubleshooting your tokens. So if your tokens are not working correctly, you can use our Postman to figure that out. So if you just get any of these collections, we have given the steps here, how to use them. They can help out in figuring out if you have valid access OAuth access tokens. And so these can be very helpful. And I went over the sandbox, the Explorer, SDKs, sample code. And actually, that's pretty much it. So over to Tristan now, but if you have any questions, please let me know after he's done.
Yep. If anybody has a question, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A panel, and we'll make sure to get to your question. Okay, thanks, Nikita. Hey, Tristan, whenever you're ready, you can start, man.
Cool. Let me also figure out how to share my screen. And oh my goodness, there's so many options. Let's see. Great.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
everybody see that?
Yes.
Cool. So, hi everyone. I'm from Square. If that Jimmy's intro didn't make that obvious enough. We're super excited to be at the QuickBooks Hackathon coming up this weekend. I will be there pretty much the entire time, so that should be a good time for us all. I want to show you sort of the most popular use case for APIs, which is taking payments. We also have APIs that allow you to manage your inventory or do employee management or customer management as well. And I'll touch on some of those. But since we don't have tons of time, I just want to show you some of the use cases we have around taking payments online. So let's just jump right into it. Let me make sure that everything is ideal here. I explained that part. So at Square, really our whole purpose for our company is to help people start, run, and grow their business. With this through taking payments. We also offer invoices services. We can do gift cards, point of sale. We have all these sort of other value-added services that build on top of our base payment functionality that allow people to just build and grow their business more effectively and more easily. But like I said, what you're probably most interested in is how you can actually incorporate that payment taking technology into an application you have. And so for e-commerce, our implementation is pretty standard compared to some of the other e-commerce providers you might have seen. We basically have a JavaScript library you include into the head of your page. And what that does is actually transforms some of the boilerplate HTML that we give you. So you can hear we just see some labels and some divs. And our JavaScript library actually just turns that into a payment form like this. You can see you get a lot of stuff for free, like you can have all your breaks up your card numbers into little segments. That's kind of nice. Gives you some formatting for your dates. That's kind of the basic stuff, and really all the information that we care about in the transaction is, the card number, the expiration date, the postal code for the transaction, and oh, can you guys still see my video?
Yes.
Cool. I just got some kind of ping. Cool. So we only care about sort of the main stuff that you would actually see on the card, as well as the postal code. And actually, I can go through a little example right here of actually going through the process of charging a card. And so oops, looks like my payment form failed to load here. Just refresh the page real quick. And so when you enter your card details, whether your buyer enters the card details into your payment form, I'm just going to do one of a testing card right now, which is just basically a 4 followed by all ones. Don't try to buy anything for real with this card because it might work somewhere. Just kidding, it probably won't work anywhere. And so when your buyer enters your card details, you can submit that form to us, and we return to you a card nonce. And so, kind of the interesting thing about our e-commerce solution is that instead of actually entering the card details onto your site, the buyer actually directly enters them into a series of iframes. And so that JavaScript library we talked about before actually transforms all those divs into a series of iframes that go directly to Square. And so when somebody enters their credit card information, that allows us to be the only people that see it, basically. So it gives you that sort of level of PCI compliance. You don't have to touch any of the credit card details yourself. And what we do return to you is a card nonce. And so that's just basically a one-time use token. You can see mine right there. And that's basically an identifier that says, you give Square's got your card details, and this is just some random identifier that allows us to look up that card details again in the future. And so I can actually take my card nonce and then send that to what we call the charge endpoint. So this is just a REST endpoint. You can see the sort of HTTP representation here. We're going to post over down to a URL that has our location ID in it. Location ID is an identifier for your Square business. And then it just has a couple of details here. So we have item potency key. That's if that's something you're not super familiar with, item potency is a way to prevent you from mischarging or for some sort of HTTP traffic redirect thing to create some sort of duplicate charge for your customers. And so basically every time you do a payment charging transaction or any sort of payment transaction, we only allow you to use one item potency key at a time. And so if we end up getting 2 requests with the same item potency key, then that's something that we use to say, like, oh, maybe this is a mistaken request or some sort of weird internet thing. We got 2 requests instead of 1. And so we actually just will only return the same information back when you give an item potency key that's already been used. And so you can use that to replay transactions as well. In addition to item potency key, we have the amount that we're charging, the amount money here. We use the base currency, or like the smallest unit of currency for any currency. So here for US dollars, we're actually using cents. And so this is 5,000 cents or $50. For something like yen, which doesn't really have a smaller unit of currency, it would just be yen. And so it'd be 5,000 yen. And then the card nonce is the card nonce we've had from the time before. And then I actually have all that information bundled up into a curl request, so we can actually see possibly if I know what I'm doing with Zoom. Let's see. I'm going to share this terminal window now.
You probably have to unshare. There you go.
Super. So here I got my terminal here. I'm just going to copy and paste that information that we had on the page. And here you can see, it's just a curl request. It has the full URL here, which is the API URL. It has my location ID in there. And then it also has, authorization. So use OAuth 2. So we have a bearer token. We also provide personal access tokens. So you can just go to your Square dashboard and get an access token that you can use without going through OAuth that just accesses your account. And then we have the item potency key, like I talked about, the amount we're going to charge, which in this case is just $1, and then the card amounts that we generated before. And then we're just piping that into Python's JSON processor, so it pre-prints it out a little bit. And there we go. And so you can see that what we get back from Square's APIs is this transaction object. You can see some details like when it was created and how much it was. And you can also get some details from about the card. So if you wanted to display something in your UI that was like, oh, you just purchased with your Visa, ending in 1111, you can do that. And then just other metadata about the transaction as well. So that's that. Let's switch back to where we are. Cool. And then the other sort of example I think is pretty common. How are we doing on time, Jimmy?
We have plenty of time.
Oh, cool. So I'll just go through this example too. A lot of situations.
We got a question.
Oh.
Sean's asking, where does the independency key come from?
So item potency key is something that you can generate. So a lot of times people generate like some sort of like GUID or UID just sort of at random. And other times you can, if you're doing something where you are perhaps tracking transactions in a different system, or you have some sort of other identifier for a specific transaction, you can just use that existing alternate transaction ID or something like that as your item potency key. But the main thing to remember is that, it can basically be any kind of string that you want. It just has to be unique for every transaction. And if you try to give us the same item potency key twice, you'll have probably a result different than you expect. So it has to be unique for every transaction. And, other than that, it can kind of be sort of whatever you want. Here I've just generated like a GUID, and most people do that. And then you'd want to store that information possibly in the future, so that you don't accidentally charge somebody twice if they hit the submit button twice or something like that. That's just kind of a way to prevent double charges. Hopefully that comes into it. But yeah, base answer to the question, you provide it.
Cool.
Great. So I'll just go through this other example. So in addition to sort of that one-off type of payment where a buyer is coming to your site and generating card nonce through entering their details, and then you charge it. We also provide functionality for recurring payments or subscription billing, however you want to call it. And the way we do that is actually use the same functionality that our Square point of sale systems have called card on file. And so as a customer or a buyer from somebody's in-person store, you can actually just sort of attach your card to your customer profile in Square. And then whenever you go back to your salon, they already have your card details and they can just charge you without having to swipe your card again. So it's kind of a way to make those experiences a little bit nicer. And we just use that again for our subscription billing. And so how it works in the context of e-commerce, first you have to create a customer, which is just another REST request. And so here, I wonder if I share my whole desktop, if it'll be a little bit easier to go back and forth with the terminal. I hope I don't get any embarrassing notifications. And so this is just another curl request I have here. You can see that we are posting. We have a new URL here, the customer's URL. and customers are sort of global for your Square account, so there's no location ID there. I have that same authorization in the header, and I'm giving it some JSON here. I'm creating a customer called Veronica Slocombe, and I've given her a note actually that she is an exceptional customer. They don't feel it's just an example of a piece of metadata that we can provide, and so let's just copy that, and here I'm just going to paste it in again, and then I'm going to maybe I'll make that a little bit bigger. I guess probably people can see pretty well since they're on their computers. And here, I get that pretty print JSON of a customer. You can see when they're created. They have this email address, an ID, that note, and some other metadata. I'm actually just going to copy this customer ID that I just generated, and then go back to over here. And I'm going to need to create a card nonce here. So another thing about card nonce is that they're one-time use only, and they do expire. They expire in 24 hours. And so the two things you can do with the card nonce is either charge it directly, like I did in the first example, or you can actually attach it to a customer, like I'm about to show you. And so here's a new card nonce that we've generated using our payment form. And then we're going to attach that card nonce to a customer. And so I'm just going to paste in my customer ID here. And so this is kind of a big one. So I'll just go through it step by step. So we have another post request that we're sending with curl. We're sending it to the same customer's endpoint that we had before, but instead of creating a new customer, we're actually going to send it to the customer that we already created. So we have that customer ID in there. And then we're sending it to the cards URL. So it's kind of, we're going to Square, conceptually into customers, a specific customer that we just created, Veronica Slocombe, and then we're hitting that customer's cards endpoint. And then, authorization, of course, and then we send it some JSON. And so this is the card nonce we generated before. You can actually, see it, CBase up here, and then it ends in GAQ. Same thing that we had up here. And then we've attached a billing address. This is kind of optional. You can see it's probably not a real address, 500 Electric Avenue. I even have a cardholder name here, and the cardholder name doesn't even have to match the customer name. You can see Amelia Earhart's not Veronica Slocombe by any means. And so I'm just going to send that curl request as well. And for that pasted in good. And so what we're doing here is actually creating a new card on file for this customer. And so you can see we get back this card object. It has the billing address we provided. Since it knows what that card nonce is, it knows it's a Visa. It knows it ends in quad one. It knows the expiration date and year as well. And so, it's kind of important to know if you are doing some kind of, subscription billing, and that they have a 12-month subscription, but their card expires, in the next 2 months, then you're going to want to reach out to that user and possibly get them to update their card information. And so we have that card created for our customer, Veronica. And I'm just going to copy this ID that we get back, so the specific card ID that we have. And then I'm going to go down to the next slide here. We're going to get into charging it. I'm just going to paste that card ID in. And so this is the same charge endpoint we used before, where we provide the item potency key. We have the amount of money that we're charging, the currency. But this time, instead of providing that card nonce that we provided in the first example, we're actually just going to provide the customer ID and the customer card ID to have both of those kind of filled in here. So this is the DDBA 64. It's the same. Same customer card ID that we created in the previous example, or in the previous step rather. And this customer ID is the same customer ID we had before. And so I'm going to copy that and play that one. And there we go. So we get the same transaction response. here you can see that we still have the same metadata about how much it cost, what brand the card was. One of the big differences is that instead of the sort of generic e-commerce transaction, we got a card on file transaction. So you can actually tell if it's a transaction that's done over recurring billing, or whether the customer actually input their card details in that specific transaction. And then so we just charge that card on file. So you could, now that I have that information, that card on file and that customer information, I could then just set up some sort of cron job to bill them every month, or every time they come to my site and order something new, I have that card information on file. And so whenever they check out something new, they don't need to have their card info entered again, which is
so.
Nice.
So what happens when the card you said it expires, right? But once it's on file, that doesn't matter anymore, or what?
Yeah. So the card nonce, after you generate it in the form, you have essentially 24 hours to use it, but really you should be using it in the next 2 minutes. And so what like I mentioned, the card nonce can basically either be used to charge that card directly, or you can use it just to sort of consume it and attach it to this customer. And so once it's attached to a customer or charged, then it's kind of expired and it's used up. But the main thing is that you can use that card nonce and attach it to the customer, and the customer will sort of have that card attached to it until you delete it, basically. Cool. And then I can actually, because I forgot I had one more step in here, where I can actually list my transactions for this account. And we can see here. So let's see. We can look at the last two that we have here. So we have one. Last two are probably at the top. Okay, so we have one that you can see that we created one on 11/10 at 17:30. I think it's in UTC time or something. The transaction was a card on file transaction. It was for $1. That was the one we just had. And then you can see the one before we had as well, just 8 minutes or so before. Another $1 transaction that we actually keyed in the numbers, not the card on file transaction. Cool. And then let's see what else we have here. Another kind of cool e-commerce related product we have is something we call Square Checkout. And basically this is just a checkout form that you can redirect your end users to, and then they'll be able to go throughout the checkout experience. This is this would be on a Square hosted site, and you don't have to worry about any of the PCI compliance. We don't even require you to have a HTTPS URL to redirect from, even though you should use HTTPS anywhere you are. And you can enter sort of some pre-made stuff around, you get a nice shipping form for free. You can enter your itemizations in there, and they just fill out the information. And then once the order is done, it redirects back to your site. And so it's just another way to sort of take a payment without having to do all the nonce generation and go back and forth between the API. You can just sort of redirect your users and get that redirect back, and it's a little bit easier. So that's another e-commerce kind of product we have. And cool, yeah. So I wonder if this will work. So the last thing I wanted to show is what we call our point of sale APIs. And this is another way to take a payment, basically, but through our in-person point of sale technology. And so in this little video, you can see the base example where we have some kind of custom app. And then when you hit checkout, it actually switches over to the Square point of sale app, where you can use a reader. You can finish your transaction. And then when the transaction is done, it switches back to your application. And so you can do this with iOS or Android native applications, but I actually have this example, since this is on the web, I actually have this example presumably queued up on this iPad right here. And so let's see if I if I start my video. Can you see me? Yeah, I have super long hair. So I actually have an iPad right here that is this screen. And you can see I've reoriented it several different ways now. And so I'm just going to hit this big link down here, click here to check out. And the first time you do it, you get this sort of indication to, oh, do you want to open it in the point of sale app? And then, I've created that link as a request for $1. I'll just pretend it's a cash transaction. And then when I'm done with the web, you can actually redirect to any sort of URL you want. And so here I have a redirect to this cool page. But you can see I've done that a couple of times. But the cool thing is that you can basically build a web app or an iOS app or Android app that allows you to take in-person payments to using our hardware. And so that's kind of a great way if you have some sort of application for a very specific type of business. Like we have people who use it for applications with plumbers, some sort of plumber application that helps you measure your pipe and look at local regulations and all that kind of stuff. But then when you're on your way out the door and you want to take a payment, you can just use the custom application in conjunction with Square Point of Sale, use the same hardware, everything. Don't have to worry about PCI compliance or anything like that, and just take your payment like that. And that, I think, is about the conclusion. I just have a couple links. We have our Square developer site where you can create your portal and see all of our documentation like that. We actually have a Slack team that's open up for our developers, if anybody's interested in that. You, of course, can find us on Twitter. We have a blog, too, called The Corner, that I spend a lot of time writing blog posts on. And then you can actually see this whole presentation right here. And it's nice because this website actually has all the card nonce generation inside of it. You can all do it on your own desktop as well. So yeah, that's kind of it for me, I guess.
Excellent. Thanks, Tristan. That's a great demo you did there, man. Quick question for you, man. We don't have any from our audience, but I had one regarding the recurring payments.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when the customers indicated that they want to be charged on that? Because you have the card on file, right? So what's the indicator? Like, how do you know when to make that call, or is that just within your code?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that it sort of depends on your business logic. Obviously, we have some legal verbiage in the documentation about this, but you want to make sure that when you're taking that card nonce and not charging it once, but attaching it as a card on file, that your customers know that, right? Like, you want to make sure that you're straightforward with your customers and saying that, oh, we're going to be attaching this as part of a subscription, right? It'd be weird to sign up for iTunes and then like, oh, I'm getting charged every month now. Like, that's surprising. And so you want to make sure that is upfront and straightforward with your customers. But then other than that, it sort of depends on your business logic. If you're using card on file as part of a subscription, then basically you just want a cron job that runs every month that it goes through a list and charges all the cards or something like that. And a lot of people use it for if you create an account on an e-commerce site, and then next time you check out, you don't have to enter your card details again. And so it kind of mostly falls into those couple use cases where either you're doing a regularly scheduled charge, or you're sort of making a charge based on user events.
Okay, cool. And I take it once the customer has a card on file, does it remain there for eternity, or is there a time limit?
Yeah, it's there. until either you delete it, you can delete that customer and it'll be gone. There are ways for it to expire. If the card expires, we actually do some logic on our side with the banks that can actually sort of refresh expired cards. And so unless that end user actually, if their card gets stolen or something and they change their card, obviously then that goes away. But if for a lot of banks, if your card is just sort of naturally expiring due to age, then you won't even have to update it. As long as the card number stays the same, it'll actually keep working the card on file.
Cool. If anybody in the audience has questions, please go ahead and use the Q&A panel and type away. I had another question. What currencies are supported right now?
Yeah, so in general, you can charge in only the currency of your home country. And so we're available in the US, Canada, Australia, Japan, and the UK right now. We're working hard to expand, but it's mostly a legal battle, to be honest. But that being said, you can we accept card brands from like 200 something countries, and so it's all about the currencies you can charge in are from those 5 countries. But you could be someone from China or Russia and still pay at a Square merchant just fine. You just be charged in a different currency.
Cool. Well, those are all the questions I had. I think we have one from the Q&A. Pratik says, how is Square related to QuickBooks? I don't think there's a relation, Pratik. The only relation in our context is we're holding a hackathon this Saturday and Sunday, and Tristan is going to be there on behalf of Square as a partner of our hackathon. Besides that, I don't think there's much relation. Do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, we have that app integration in between our 2 services, right? So
we have that.
There are a lot of customers that we have a lot of shared customers, I guess would be, a lot of Square merchants use QuickBooks to help manage their books, and a lot of QuickBooks customers use Square to accept payments in their in-person environments. And so a lot of shared customers, I guess, is the main thing.
Right, and you can use both the APIs in combination. So Square to accept payments and then enter those payments for your customers in QuickBooks.
Yeah, absolutely.
It works pretty well. Yeah.
Good question then. Good answer. Oh, got another one. Oh, no, we don't. Pratik just says, okay, sounds good, thanks.
I see that so Sean has one in the chat, right? So if the divs are changed into iframes, how then is the nonce returned to the developer? So great question. Usually, this is one of the areas where you can see what kind of level every developer is in. And so what we do is we actually use the I want to make sure I get the term, the post message capabilities in between different windows. And so basically whenever your how the flow works is a buyer's at your website and they enter their card details into the payment form, which is like you mentioned, just a series of iframes for us. And then whenever they hit submit or checkout or whatever the action button is, there's a couple things that happen. So you actually send a post message over to our iframes that say, here we're checking out now. And then that sort of submits the iframes for us, and then we return that card nonce back to your page. So it's a client-side interaction. And then with that card nonce, you then, in general, and you have flexibility here as a developer, but with that card nonce, then you have, in general, some sort of redirect, like an actual, post submission or something like that, where you take that card nonce and put it into your backend. So So instead of a normal, sort of like form submission where you specify the method as post or get, and then that just sort of automatically redirects your user, you sort of prevent the default interaction, do that card nonce generation, and then go through that sort of default interaction where you submit that card nonce along with what other order details, like how much to charge and things like that. And then on the back end, you actually charge the API. Let me know if that isn't clear enough.
Sounds good. We have a question from Vivek. This is for you, Nikita. It says, could you demonstrate how to use QuickBooks API to get total sales made by a company?
Yes, actually, I'm on it. Give me a minute. I'll set it up real quickly, and then I can show that.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And so here's our Postman connection that I was talking about earlier. You can get it on our developer side. Just go to API Docs and Tools and Postman. Once you have it, it's under Reports Entity. You can go here. You can peruse by whatever endpoint you like. But I think what you were looking for was item sales. And once you have, I'm using OAuth 1, but let me actually show you the OAuth 2 as well. But this is what it looks like. You have columns, rows. Right now, I don't think my company has anything. That's why you can't see anything. But you can run item sales. And then there's other types of reports as well. So you can do customer sales, sales by department. You can run P&L on the company, which is what a lot of our developers use too. So let me get the OAuth 2. This is what the OAuth 2 playground looks like. And you can get the OAuth. Let me quickly get it. But did that answer your question? So like this is the endpoint or the API you would use to run reports.
That Postman collection is really cool. We actually use Postman too, and we love it. I think it's a great tool for developers.
Yes.
Yeah, super, super handy.
So this is how you would get the access token. You can use this here. Okay. Oh yeah, I have to change the company ID for that. Yeah, that's how you get it.
Cool.
Yeah, so this is very helpful. So I would say start with Postman.
And Vivek says, yes, thanks.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome. So we have 12 more minutes. So we'll hang out for just a little bit longer and wait for questions to come in. If there are not any, then we will adjourn.
Cool. Are you, how long are you going to be at the hackathon this weekend, Jimmy?
I'm going to be there for 48 hours total.
Wow.
Yes, we're going to be there from 9 a.m. Saturday, 5 p.m. Sunday.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
There will be bags under my eyes probably by the 48th hour, but I will be there.
Yeah, I'm going to take some time to sleep. So
That's a good idea. It makes for coherency makes for better answers when people ask you questions.
Yeah, the problem is that I feel like the time when you want to sleep is the prime time for questions too. So
yeah, no, that's how hackers work, right? Like around 2 in the morning or so. That's when everybody gets into their coding mode.
Yeah.
How about you, Nikita? Are you going to be there all night? Do you have like a late night shift or what?
I actually don't know. But yeah, but some of my team members are going to be there, so that we have full support though, so should be good.
Yes, for sure. For sure I'll be there. So,
okay.
Yes.
How many? You said it was maximum capacity. How many people are going to be there?
We have 450 people who have RSVP.
Oh my goodness!
I think we have another. Last I checked, it was like 27 on the wait list.
Cool, that's awesome.
Like that, yeah. So, but if you're on the wait list and you're on this call, I highly recommend that you show up because a lot of people don't show up. So it's likely you'll be able to get in.
Yeah, and you have previewed our API, so it will be easier, I guess, for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think the stuff that people come up with at this event is always super useful for businesses.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Have you guys been at other hackathons since I last saw you? Because I last saw you in London. That was back in March. So have you guys been doing other things?
Yeah, we haven't been doing as many other hackathons. I mean, this one is just so great because it has such a good focus with our target area, and it's hard to find as many that are as aligned. But we've been doing a lot more sort of conferences and meetups kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm working on a presentation right now for the Boston Drupal meetup, where we're talking about the Drupal integration with Square.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How does the Drupal integration with Square works? Is it just a plugin or something? Or
yeah, so it's a module, sort of like an addition to the base Drupal Commerce module, and so it just basically allows you to have Square as another payment gateway, and it also does inventory tracking and like syncing between Drupal and Square as well.
Oh, nice. So it's if it's a plugin, it's almost like they don't have to do any coding, right? They just kind of just plop it on their screen and just
right. Yeah. So they just have a they install it through the extensions interface, and then they do go through OAuth, and so that's kind of the only thing that you have to do.
Gotcha. Well, I don't know if you're going to be there, but because I saw you at the SFHTML5 meetup probably a while back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. QuickBooks is now sponsoring it. So,
oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yes. So if you come back, you'll see me there every month until, next year, unless we re-up again, I'll be there for another year.
Cool. That's awesome. I'll have to get over there.
Yes. Come by and take my swag, please.
Yeah, that's such a cool group here in the Bay Area where, I assume it's still just as big, where it's, like 300 or 400 people every.
Yeah, it's huge.
Month, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They, in addition to us, I think AutoCAD, Microsoft, and Google all sponsor it. So it gets a lot of attendees.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah. And they always have a wonderful wine selection.
Yeah, the food is super good.
Yeah.
The drinks, they always do a good job with that.
Yes. Okay, looks like we're not going to get any more questions coming in, so I think we can go ahead and end this meeting. Thanks for showing up, guys. Tristan, I will see you Saturday, right?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yes. Nikita, I will probably see you later on today.
Probably.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.